Hello. If being yourself keeps getting you burnt professionally and personally, or if authenticity sounds like a fast track to chaos, you're in the right place. By the end of this video, you'll understand why not being authentic hurts your health and mental health, and how to be authentic in a way that actually supports your well-being. So, welcome. Let me introduce you to two lovely people. Professor Wise has been living life on autopilot lately. Life taught them to develop a quantum precision vibe detector. They've totally mastered the art of reading and matching the room, always thoughtful, composed, and impeccably professional. They're successful, they're popular, they're greatly admired in every social role. They don't even remember auditioning, so that's interesting. Professor Wise is not really sure who they are outside these roles anymore. Years of strict emotional mastery have left them disconnected from vulnerability and intuition. Success has stopped being successful. Admiration feels like a quagmire. They would really love to just be sometimes, but they're not entirely sure what that really means anymore, or how it's possible to have so many friends and still feel completely alone, to be successful and yet feel so stuck. Dr. Honest has also been living life on autopilot lately. Life taught them to develop a quantum precision bullshit detector. Anything that doesn't feel like the raw truth feels like a lie. And they can't do lies to save their life, let alone their job or friendships. Kind of the wrong world to find yourself in. 5 stars, wouldn't recommend. It's not that they haven't tried. Oh, they have, believe me. They've super glued the polite mask to their face before walking into the office. They smiled at the sexist joke. They've bitten their tongue when the boss quoted the wrong statistic again. They couldn't sleep for 3 days after, but hey, at least they got the promotion. The new workplace has this amazing well-being policy. Bring your whole self to work. It's pretty much the reason they accepted the offer. Except they missed the small print. Just be yourself, but not like that. So Dr. Honest is being labeled unprofessional and too intense once again. They don't have another whole self to bring to work, so they're a bit stuck. What do Professor Wise and Dr. Honest have in common? They're both living one half of the authenticity equation, the opposite halves, and their well-being is suffering accordingly. Let's see if you can guess what the two halves are. Oh, sorry, someone at the back is asking what we're actually talking about. All right, fair enough. Let me define authenticity. But let's get something out of the way first, because this clears up about 75% of the debate around authenticity. Being authentic does not mean saying anything and everything that comes to mind, being self-absorbed, being unprofessional, disrespectful, or offensive, oversharing personal information in non-personal contexts, disregarding others' feelings in the name of truth, putting yourself or others in danger in the name of truth, or behaving exactly the same in every situation. So hopefully some of you can put those taggers back in, or at least lower them slightly. A lot of the polarized discourse around authenticity comes from conflating it with completely unrelated concepts. professionalism, vulnerability, authority, relevance, discernment. I honestly don't get this. Just as you can have brown eyes and long legs, you can be authentic and professional. They're not mutually exclusive. They're not even in the same category. So, what is authenticity? In psychology, it's usually defined as alignment between one's values, beliefs, and emotions on the one hand, and one's behavior on the other. In other words, what you do aligns with what you believe is right. For example, if you hear a sexist joke and believe that sexism is wrong, but you go along with it anyway, there is misalignment between your beliefs and your behavior. That's inauthenticity. This is a useful definition, but it's missing two important pieces. Let's go to Carl Rogers for the first one. Psychologist Carl Rogers defined authenticity as congruence between one's experience, awareness, and communication. In his words, authenticity exists when the feelings a person is experiencing are available to awareness, and the person is able to live these feelings and communicate them if appropriate. Those last two words matter a lot, if appropriate. So I have an emotion, I allow myself to feel it, and I act on it if appropriate. Using the earlier example, you hear the sexist joke, you believe it's wrong, you feel discomfort, you allow yourself to feel that discomfort, and you communicate it if appropriate. But here's an even simpler definition, my own. Authenticity equals emotional honesty plus contextual discernment. That's what I previously called the authenticity equation. Not openness at all costs, not silence at all costs, openness or silence as appropriate. I'm honest with myself about my emotions. I don't brush them aside or gaslight myself into feeling something else. And I use discernment to decide the best course of action in the current context. And just to be very clear, emotional honesty does not mean sharing your emotions indiscriminately with others. Sorry, Dr. Honest. It's honesty with yourself. How am I feeling about this thing? Am I conflicted or am I aligned with myself? How much of that you share with others is not a matter of authenticity. It may be a matter of habit, relevance, vulnerability, authority, professionalism, etc., but it's not authenticity. I can be emotionally honest and speak up if appropriate, and I can be emotionally honest and stay quiet if appropriate. So if we map this out, Professor Wise has contextual discernment but not much emotional honesty, whilst Dr. Honest has emotional honesty but not much contextual discernment. They're both suffering. Both halves are required for authenticity, and both are required for genuine well-being. And here's why this matters far more than most people realize. Let's go back to that pesky joke. You hear it, you believe it's inappropriate, you feel discomfort, but you decide not to say anything because you don't want to rock the boat and you really want that promotion. So your emotions go one way, your behavior goes the other way. Your autonomic nervous system responds to this internal misalignment with a fight or flight reaction, objectively measurable by a lie detector. Nope, I didn't just call you a liar, you did. I'm just the messenger. Your own nervous system is the snitch. Of course, after years of practice, we stop consciously noticing the physiological reactions, which is exactly why this is so dangerous. Whether you notice it or not, your body just got another hit of stress hormones to process, on top of the real stress you're already swimming in. I hope at least the joke was funny. Most of us spend an astonishing amount of energy repressing emotions until we're not even aware of them anymore, at which point we suppress them subconsciously. And this is where Professor Wise got stuck. This is one of the key reasons we are so exhausted the whole time. Why we feel disconnected from our bodies, why we can feel lonely and unseen, even when surrounded by people we love. And this isn't about blame. It's about understanding why everything can look fine on the outside and still feel deeply wrong on the inside. And it doesn't stop here. Keeping the body in a constant fight or flight state leads to inflammation, autoimmune illness, and all kinds of preventable diseases. Turns out we can lie to ourselves, but we can't lie to our bodies. The moment you hear that stupid joke, a critical decision is required, and it's a decision you've been making hundreds of times a day since you were born. Be right or belong? Do I want to be authentic or accepted? Do I prioritize my own emotions or other people's emotions? And this is one hell of a conundrum because most of us have been conditioned to see authenticity and acceptance as a zero-sum game. Be true to yourself and be rejected, or betray yourself and be accepted. We didn't choose this. From our very first hours of life, we learned to prioritize others' emotions because our survival literally depended on it. In environments that don't value us intrinsically, inauthenticity is survival. The problem is that the same strategy that once kept us alive is now quietly destroying our well-being. So, how do we get unstuck? If it's Professor Wise asking, I'd say, stop lying to yourself. If it's Dr. Honest asking, I would say, stop betraying yourself. Yes, that's flippant, and no, it's not the full picture. If you're familiar with internal family systems, you'll know that we all develop protective strategies to prevent past pain from resurfacing. People-pleasing, overworking, caretaking, dissociation, emotional suppression. These strategies are very smart, and it's what kept us safe in the past. But these parts of us don't have the big picture of what's best for us. They're often using outdated strategies, and they are not who we really are. Our core self has the big picture. It can weigh up multiple factors and choose what's best for us calmly and confidently. It's our core self rather than our social conditioning that can be both emotionally honest and contextually appropriate. Acting from self means honoring every part of us without letting fear run our lives. So when I flippantly say, Professor Wise, stop lying to yourself, what I mean is, are you being truthful to your own emotions and acting from your core self? Or are you acting from social conditioning, for example, fear of being vulnerable, hurt, misunderstood, or rejected? And when I say, Dr. Honest, stop betraying yourself, what I mean is, are you considering the bigger picture, weighing up the pros and cons of what's best for you in the moment and acting from your core self? Or are you acting from social conditioning, for example, fear of being unworthy without external validation, belief that other people are more important than you, that only others deserve boundaries, or that you can only be valuable when you give. Okay, I hear you ask, but how do we know what is actually true? Earlier, I said the psychology definition of authenticity was missing two important elements. We've already looked at one of them, contextual discernment, the if appropriate part. So what's the second one? We said authenticity was defined as alignment between one's values, beliefs, and emotions on the one hand, and one's behavior on the other. And I've got a bit of a problem with those values and beliefs. Because having just looked at the difference between acting from our core self and acting from socially conditioned protective strategies, you can probably see the issue. When we say we're acting according to our values and beliefs, whose values and beliefs are these exactly? Are they genuinely ours, arising from our core self? Or are they values and beliefs we've internalized because of fear-driven conditioning? For example, when I say I value privacy and believe personal matters should never be discussed at work, who is speaking? Is it my core authentic self? Or is it a deeply ingrained belief shaped by past experiences, equating vulnerability with rejection? At first glance, this can feel like an impossible problem to solve. After all, we're all social animals. Most of what we are is socially conditioned, right? So how are we supposed to tell the difference? This is where emotions come in. Emotions are our internal guidance system. They tell us, this is good for me, or this is not good for me. And they never lie. We can convince ourselves that certain values or beliefs are genuinely our own, even when they're not fully aligned with who we are as an individual. But we can't do that with emotions, not without serious consequences for our health and mental health. This is why following the trail of a confusing or uncomfortable emotion often leads us straight to a core belief that's quietly shaping our behavior, sometimes in ways we don't actually want. Emotions are incredibly valuable data. If you're someone interested in research and evidence, how do you make an informed decision while disregarding an entire core data set? Despite what some very confident people on the internet might tell you, authenticity is not a myth. Yes, we're all playing social roles, of course we are, but we can play those roles authentically, or we can play them inauthentically. We are grown-ups, we can handle paradox. I can be a public figure, a doctor, or a parent pretending to have all the answers, ignoring the knot in my stomach, refusing to budge, clinging to manufactured certainty for dear life. Or I can be a public figure, a doctor, or a parent who's emotionally honest, aware of my own uncertainties, owning my limitations, and acting from my core self rather than from fear-based conditioning. The difference isn't the role. The difference is, am I being honest with myself or not? Let me tell you a story I wish I didn't have. A few weeks ago, I started this channel on a bit of a whim. After a couple of videos, I decided to add a professional intro a few minutes in. I'm F and I spent 4 decades studying the human mind. I was proudly watching my latest video after uploading it when it suddenly dawned on me. Wait, how old am I again? After doing and redoing the maths in hopes of a quiet miracle, it turns out I'd accidentally inflated my professional pedigree by an entire decade. Quite impressive, you've got to admit. Perfect way to fake being an imposter at the very start of your YouTube career, eh? Totally strong opening move. Naturally, my protective part sprang into action immediately. It's okay, you've got dyscalculia. It's okay, you've got ADHD. If you think about it, you've been studying the human mind since birth, so 4 decades was actually an understatement. But the truth is, there is no excuse. I made a stupid mistake in a public video, then repeated it in another one, and simply didn't notice despite editing, rewatching, and staring directly at those words multiple times. The mysteries of the human brain, eh? That's how we know we haven't been replaced by a sentient and totally boring AI. I am not sharing this to tell you how it's done. I'm sharing it because it perfectly illustrates the difference between acting from our protective parts and acting from our core self. In the past, something like this would have wrecked my mental health. I'd have deleted not only the videos, but the whole channel. I'd have lost weeks of sleep, worrying about being seen as a liar or an imposter. I'd have messaged people to reassure them I wasn't one. Then I would have messaged them again to make sure they received the first message. This time, I just thought, it's stupid, it's funny, and it doesn't matter. I know I'm not a liar or an imposter. I don't need external validation for that. A lot of trauma healing had to happen for that to be possible, by the way. At this point, deleting those videos would feel more dishonest to me than leaving them up. The emotionally honest, contextually discerning choice for me in this moment is to leave them there. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're scared of being authentic, what you're usually scared of is this: not being accepted for who you really are, while believing that your well-being depends on that acceptance, when the opposite is actually true. Past experience may have taught you that you need to mold yourself into whatever shape keeps others comfortable, that you're only valuable if other people are happy. So you keep performing, you keep adapting, you keep pretending it's fine. Everyone else seems to be doing it after all. Meanwhile, you're exhausted and lonely and quietly resentful. And yes, some of your relationships may now expect this version of you. It's hard to wake up one morning and be someone else. But being honest with yourself is where it starts. Are you still trading authenticity for acceptance, the same way you once did as a child when you had to? Plus the minor inconvenience of the fundamentally inauthentic systems we've built around us, of course. Good luck owning up to a serious mistake at work, being vulnerable with a competitor, or trying to publish negative research findings. Many of these systems quietly train us in performative professionalism on a collective scale, whilst most of us are privately exhausted, disconnected, and spending 50% of our energy at least pretending we don't notice. And once you give yourself permission to be completely honest with yourself, there's no more hiding. You either have to leave, or things are about to get sticky. The same dynamic also explains why other people's emotions sometimes make us uncomfortable. You know, the ones we think spill out in public, the ones we think overshare personal details at work, according to our own rules and definitions. We assume we're uncomfortable because their behavior is inappropriate. But there is actually no direct relationship between the two. Someone's behavior can be inappropriate without making us uncomfortable if we are in touch with our own emotions. If a boundary is crossed, we can point it out calmly. What discomfort tells us is that our own emotional alignment is off. And once again, this is hugely valuable information. It's pointing us back to something unresolved within ourselves, even if we may not be ready to look at it yet. And here's the thing, every social environment has its own written and unwritten rules. As adults, we generally have a choice to accept those rules, to try to change them, or to leave. But no one can tell you what an appropriate way to be authentic looks like, because no one else has access to your emotions. Only you know what feels aligned with your core self. And yes, that may take some psychological work. And yes, discernment still matters. Being emotionally honest doesn't mean opening up everywhere, especially in environments that don't value it. Remember, emotional honesty plus contextual discernment. But there are 8 billion ways to be authentic in the world. And actually, it's more like 8 billion to the power of constantly evolving. What feels right today might not feel right tomorrow, even in what looks like the same context. Authenticity is not a personality trait. It's a moment by moment relationship with yourself, which won't fit very well on a mug, but will hopefully make a bit more sense of the whole thing. I'm curious how you're navigating this trade off yourself, especially if you've tried both extremes. Let me know in the comments. And if you found some value in this, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.